It was either I go to prison for up to 5 years for this 18 U.S.C. 1960 violation, or they take me and my wife down for 30 to 60 years for a bunch of other things that they were going to pile on, like conspiracy and mail fraud and wire fraud and a bunch of other things.
You were operating a business where people could buy Bitcoin from you, and you would sell them Bitcoin. So you ended up being arrested, ended up going to prison. I'm just being real blunt about it. That's basically what happened. Let's get into that. Let's start from the beginning. What were you doing?
Right.
I mean, I know from what I understand, you told me you were trying to do everything legit. You weren't out trying, you weren't like some hidden guy. You were out in public, real open about it.
Yeah. And I'll say that, like, I don't have any judgment. I think that any type of Bitcoin transaction ought to be legal. Like, I don't think it should be regulated at all. I think if you're a drug dealer or if you're a soccer mom, you should have equal access to banking. I was not servicing people who were on, the shady side of the law, though. I was not dealing with people that were buying Bitcoin. I wasn't targeting people who were buying Bitcoin with ill-gotten gains at all. But I found myself servicing somebody who, as it turns out, had received money from another person who was involved in a Nigerian lottery scam. And they were themselves the victim. They were catfished into this whole situation. So they were a victim of the scam as well, but they were using money that they had received to buy Bitcoin from me. They were asked to stop at one point by the FBI, but she was not a sophisticated Bitcoin user. She was not a sophisticated person in general. So she didn't feel like she was doing anything wrong, continued down the path. And then in late 2020, in October 2020, my house was raided by 15 agents from the Fort Worth FBI White Collar Division, thinking that I was some sort of kingpin of the scam, apparently. I'm not sure what the rationale was, why they decided to come in such force. But it was clearly apparent to, I thought, to them during the course of the raid on my house and the interrogation that it was a giant misunderstanding. After about 6 hours, and they picked up anything that remotely had electrical pulse to it, any old laptop from 10 years ago, anything. They walked out of my house with about $60,000 worth of equipment. But then I didn't hear from them for months, and I thought, okay, they realized it was a misunderstanding. It was all over. And then in December, I was presented with a target letter saying that I was in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1960, which is operation of an unlicensed money services business. In general, what that means is that if you're a money services business, you're like a check cashing service, or you're MoneyGram or something like that. In general, has not been historically applied to people that buy and sell precious metals, coins, collectibles, or Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. However, a couple of months earlier, several months earlier, prior to that event, they had issued a new guidance memo from a little-known government organization called FinCEN, and they had said that anything that is considered to be a digital virtual convertible currency, which is a fancy term for anything that's tokenized on the internet, from Robux to Xbox points to Bitcoin. If you're selling that in any amount, $5, $1 million, whatever it is, you need to be registered as a money service business with FinCEN. I was not, and therefore I was guilty of the crime they raided me for.
So you told me, for understanding, you were real honest with them. You thought that it was all over and done with. I mean, you weren't hiding anything.
Right.
Then on that technicality, you went to prison, and they even wanted more time than you got.
Yeah.
And the judge even, is that right?
Yeah. So the prosecutor was a gentleman named Sid Modi, It felt like the FBI was possibly I mean, maybe this is just good cop, bad cop stuff, but it seemed like the FBI was at least attempting to be reasonable during the investigation. But once the U.S. Attorney's Office got a hold of it, they were like a dog with a bone. And he told several people tangentially involved in my life and in my case that there's no way in hell Mark Hopkins isn't going to spend the max amount of time in prison we can get him for. I think I must have pissed him off at a conference or said something, because he had a very unnatural. It was very unnaturally rude and unnaturally. I was in his sights as if I was some sort of evildoer. But yeah, the situation was that they being Sid Modi, constructed a situation where it was either I go to prison for up to 5 years for this 18 U.S.C. 1960 violation, or they take me and my wife down for 30 to 60 years for a bunch of other things that they were going to pile on, like conspiracy and mail fraud and wire fraud and a bunch of other things.
So you took the deal for the 5 years?
Clearly, yeah. I mean, obviously, I couldn't. My wife doesn't. My wife loves the fact that I'm into Bitcoin, but she's not a Bitcoiner. She's a volleyball coach. I'm not going to make her and myself a martyr for crypto. I've got to, family comes first, right? Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.